credit score. The new surcharge could potentially help those with lower credit scores pay less. However, those with stronger credit scores could end up dishing out even more money. Doesn't seem to make sense, right? The new fees already causing backlash from mortgage and housing professionals who also think it does not make sense. So joining us now to explain the impact on the home buyer is Jason Greer, founder and president of Greer Consulting. Jason, thanks for coming back to talk about this.
Hey, thank you, Nicole.
We talked about it last week. It is now May 1st when this is officially set to go into effect. And already we have 34 state financial officers from 27 states who have signed on to a letter to the Biden administration demanding an end to this. Do you think we're going to see even more backlash? This is on day one.
Day one, day two, day three, day 30, the backlash is going to be huge because social media has caught a hold of it. Once social media catches a hold of anything, the backlash is going to be almost insurmountable, at least for the time being.
All right, so Jason, as I said, we talked to you about this last week, kind of previewing this. At the time, it was difficult to say if overall this would be a good thing or a bad thing. Do you kind of still feel the same way? Because, obviously we know there's this backlash, but there is also logic behind these new rules, even if it kind of seems illogical and has these illogical results.
Theoretically, I don't think anybody with good credit should be penalized in order to help anybody else, theoretically. But there's something else that's happened that I think is even bigger and more powerful than any of this, is the fact that there's an actual discourse that's happening on social media around the fact that African Americans and Hispanics have lower credit scores, in terms of their savings are lower. And it's not that people are casting, pointing fingers at them. I think if anything else, now there's this discourse taking place about the generational racism that has kept these groups away from owning homes. I've actually seen liberals, I've seen conservatives, I've seen people in between actively talking about what you brought up last week, talking about redlining, talking about so many of the barriers that people of color have had to overcome in order to own homes. So again, theoretically, I hate the fact that people with good credit might be potentially penalized by this. But when we look at the bigger issue here, we actually have people who are talking about things that they didn't even know existed prior to this policy coming into play. So from the grand scale, this might be a good thing.
It might be a good thing. Jason, let's talk about the fact this only impacts first-time home buyers, so we need to say that.
Right.
Also only impacts those using Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac government-backed loans. So it's important to say that, if you have private financing, this will not impact you. If you're buying your second home, third home. But will this impact those borrowers pretty evenly, or is it going to impact people in different housing markets differently?
That's just the thing. We don't know. I mean, it's fascinating because you have Sandra Thompson of the FHFA who's come on and said all of this backlash that we're receiving is the boogeyman. None of this really exists. So we really don't know the sheer extent that this program is going to have. We don't know the impact that it's going to have on the housing market. And we also don't even know if it's actually going to help the groups of people that it initially sought out to help. So we just don't know at this point.
We just don't know a lot to, and again, no one with good credit certainly, I would think, would want to end up paying more than somebody with bad credit. Right. So this is just one set of changes May 1st, but there are actually more planned changes set for just a few months, set for August. Can you talk to us about kind of what's still around the bend, what's set to happen, and how those changes will potentially impact borrowers?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we look at the fact that mortgage rates are changing. We look at the fact, I get back to this original statement that we live in such an interesting time that we sort of don't know what any of these changes are going to look like, because there's a perception as to what's happening and there's a reality of what's going to happen. So at this point, we really don't know. I will tell you that when you consider all of the changes that are going on in banks, I mean, you look at the fact that First Republic just got seized, right? Things are just sort of up and down. We just don't know where things are going at this point.
Yeah, and home ownership is really such a crucial tool in building wealth here in our country. So we will see what ends up happening and how it affects people across the board. Jason Greer, thank you for coming back to talk about it. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, up next, not in my backyard, why the debate over lawn care?